Who has been suppressing the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? We attempted to break out 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the 5th attempt to break all-time high. It seems like we've been trading sideways for a very long time. Since all the way back over here, December 2024, we have been trading sideways, fighting to break out of this level. Who's been suppressing the price of cryptocurrency? We're going to dive into that subject today. Not only that, but I'm going to give you the bullish and the bearish case. I want to give you both perspectives so you could adjust your portfolio accordingly to make the most amount of money. The best traders in the world, they have plans for both sides of the story. So I want to lay that out in this video. I want to tell you exactly what I'm doing with my portfolio and how I'm going to posture myself in this uncertain climate right now. And of course, I'm going to give you, again, the bullish and bearish case. If you're new here, my name is Alex. I've been doing cryptocurrency for 8 years. Started off with $7,000. Now I manage millions in cryptocurrency. And I made this channel as a way to start a cryptocurrency movement, a big movement that rewrites history. My goal here is not just to trade crypto, but to recreate cryptocurrency in the way that we think is the best. And so thank you for joining the movement. I appreciate you guys for joining this video. The first thing I want to show you guys is this hypothetical portfolio. So the reason why I broke this down for you is so that you could understand that it's not the end of the world if we break down, because we are at all-time high and we should think about these things, right? Bitcoin being at this level, 109K, there is a chance we could break down, but it doesn't mean like it's the end of the world, because if you understand how the volatility of this market works and if you position yourself in the right coins, you'll be okay. So here's a hypothetical portfolio, a really bad trader, right? Let me show you. So the initial value of this portfolio is $10,000. Let's say hypothetically the person lost 70%. They started gambling on meme coins. Their now balance is $3,000. Let's say they keep gambling on meme coins. By the way, you could lose 70% twice. People don't understand percentages, but that is possible. Let's say they lose another 70% of their $3,000. Now their account is at $900. Now let's say hypothetically they get a 10x, right? This 10x will leave them at $9,000 for a 10% loss. That is not that bad, right? Considering the person gambled twice and pretty much lost the vast majority of his crypto portfolio. Now, it might seem all doom and gloom because you don't make money, but watch this. Now, imagine if you do a dollar cost average strategy. You guys know I take a different type of risk management approach called the martingale, which is a little bit better. The only difference between this and dollar cost average is that I double it every time it drops. But let's say hypothetically, instead of putting all of your money into cryptocurrency right now, right, you put in, 1/3 of your 10K account every time there's a 30% drop, right? In this case, that portfolio is up to $62,991, dollars. So in this case, you return 630%. And in this case, you lose 10%. So I guess the main point I'm trying to make here before we get into the video is please, bro, stop going all in. This volatility of going all in is going to get you wrecked. You just need to be patient and you need to be humble about your portfolio. You make sure you have cash on the side and you'll be okay. If you're all in the market, I highly suggest you take some off the table. Not because I think it's time to sell or not because I don't think the market's going to break above all-time high. No. I'm telling you to take some off the table because your risk management sucks. If you have good risk management, you'll make way more money in the grand scheme of things. So again, I gave this portfolio because you guys don't understand. I purchase altcoins, not Bitcoin. We look at Bitcoin's price as an indicator, but if you get into altcoins, yes, 10Xs are very likely. Most of these coins, I mean, not most of them, but like a lot of the coins, the top producing coins are doing like, bro, they're doing like 10,000 to 20,000% returns. It's very difficult to say, but I averaged the last top 10 coins by percentage increase the last 2 cycles, right? And it increased on average 500,000%. Now, those are the outliers. Those are the best examples. But bro, like if you just research and you get into the right coins, I really don't think a 10x on your portfolio is like super crazy in grand scheme of altcoin season. And we've been doing research with diligence. Watch my videos. We've been doing diligent research, not hype-driven research about all of these new things happening. And they're all lining up towards the end of the year. So even if the market dips, if you have good risk management, you get into some good coins, get a solid 10x or even a 5x, this portfolio would be profitable. This portfolio right here would be profitable even if you got a 5x. I think it'll even be profitable if you got a 3x. Yeah, I think it would, because I'm not going to do the math or whatever the case is, but I think even with a 3 to 5x, you'll be profitable, right? So again, like the increase, it's called an asymmetrical bet, high upside, right? Very, low downside in the context of understanding percentages. Like if you put a small amount of money in there, you do have low downside because the only amount of money you can lose is the initial investment. So as long as you don't overinvest, then that's considered low downside. But the upside is like 10,000, 20,000%, depending on the coins that you get in, right? So please, I wanted to start this video like that so it can give you guys some calmness and peace to think long-term and stop gambling and overinvesting. The only reason people get wrecked in crypto is because they overinvest. That's the main reason, and I really just wanted to show that here. So if we go to Bitcoin's price, yeah, we've been trying to break out of here for a while. This is definitely a fight. We've tried to break out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And so I'm trying to figure out what's suppressing the price, because it's been 201 days of us fighting this all-time high level, right? What's going on? What's suppressing the price? We saw that S&P 500 in price discovery, right? If I pull up into SPX, it's in price discovery. And that basically means we did break all-time high for the S&P 500. So why is cryptocurrency lagging? What's going on, right? This is breaking all-time high right here. And so I want to answer that question today. But the first thing I want to show you guys is Ethereum did get this big jump. So this is Ethereum dominance. And as you can see, Ethereum might be showing some early signs of maybe getting some type of accumulation. As you can see, this is Ethereum dominance dropping. This is the Bitcoin halving line. Literally since the Bitcoin halving came out, Ethereum's dominance has been dropping over the market. And the crazy part about it is that Ethereum is a smart contract layer. So the amount of utility on Ethereum and layer ones in general, I'm not going to argue about layer ones and layer twos. There's a lot of layer ones and layer twos, but this is like the big indicator, layer one and layer two, right? The beauty of this is that altcoins are severely undervalued. We've clearly been in a Bitcoin season. I've been talking about this for a long time. So we've been in a Bitcoin season. Altcoins are severely undervalued. So even again, if we break low, I don't think altcoins can go so much lower. It's going to be the end of the world. And again, just bringing up this hypothetical portfolio, remember, the reason why I don't invest in Bitcoin is because maybe Bitcoin can double from here. What would be a very tragic situation is if people start accumulating Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin drops 40%, they get wrecked at 40%, and then Bitcoin could probably only double from where it's at. Maybe it gets to like 180K, 200K. That would be very, very unfortunate. So I want to be clear with everybody watching this video. We use Bitcoin as an indicator, a very clear indicator, but I personally do not buy Bitcoin because the upside of Bitcoin is not as much as altcoins. Now around here, the upside of Bitcoin was phenomenal. This is Ethereum's price, but if you pull open the BLX, around the Bitcoin halving, I mean, the risk to reward for Bitcoin was great right over here. That opportunity is out of the window. I look for asymmetrical bets. I'm looking for high upside. High upside. I'm not going to marry coins. I don't marry even altcoins. Over here, next cycle, I'm going to probably start accumulating Bitcoin. I do not marry altcoins. I don't care. It's whatever gives me the highest returns. So Bitcoin potential is slowing down. Altcoin potential is increasing. Okay, so I just want to be clear with you guys. This strategy does not work for Bitcoin because the whole point is if we get a 10x, and you're not going to get a 10x for Bitcoin. I just want to be super clear with you guys. Like in this perspective, is there a case for long-term Bitcoin? Yes. We're going to be talking about investment retirement strategies for Bitcoin. There are long-term, really lucrative strategies for Bitcoin long-term. But like in the context of what we're doing right now, as a position trader, I'm trying to make the most money. So hopefully you're trying to make the most money. And in that case, yeah, we need to make some money, right? Take advantage of the altcoin season. Bitcoin's not going to do that. Now, a couple things I want to remind you guys is that we do historically have a very bullish month. Now, this is the S&P 500, but we haven't had a bearish month in the S&P 500 since 2014. What I did is I actually averaged it out. I have another chart that we've talked about in other videos, but basically, bro, there's like a 62%, 64% chance that we will have a bullish month. So I want to kind of bring everybody's perspective on that as well. This could help Bitcoin break out of all-time high. And just to add to that kind of like altcoin perspective that I always explain, I want you to look at Bitcoin dominance right now. This chart looks better when the screen's a little bit bigger. But you look at this dominance right now, right? Bitcoin dominance has been increasing a lot. But if you look at the trend, Bitcoin's always losing dominance. Since Ethereum came out, Bitcoin just consistently loses dominance. The trend is down over the long term. Short term, we have a Bitcoin season, but over the long term, the trend is down. So I just want to make it super clear, like super clear, that this is, man, it's really like something people should pay attention to. And yeah, if we look at you can kind of see the spike here on Ethereum a little bit. Pay attention to it over the longer perspective. This does play out. Altcoins always play out. So let's briefly get into the bearish perspective. Again, I will be talking about the bullish perspective, and at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my final thoughts and exactly what I'm going to be doing with my portfolio. But basically, the first thing is miner reserves. So as you can see here very clearly, that since 2022, we've been on a downtrend. And since this is the Bitcoin halving, by the way. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the Bitcoin spot ETF. Excuse me. This is the spot ETF. So since the spot ETF, which is in January of 2024 or whatever the case, I think it's January 11th, there's been a lot of miner selling. So this is miner reserves. This is all miners. And you can see the reserves continuously drops. Now, they could be selling to the spot ETFs. No one knows exactly. So maybe that miner reserve is getting purchased up. Nobody knows. But what I do know is that they're getting rid of their Bitcoin. And they know a lot about Bitcoin. They know a lot about Bitcoin. So this could be some selling pressure. Again, so if you don't understand how Bitcoin mining works, it's every 10 to 15 minutes. It's not exactly based on time, but basically there's like this lottery system. So there's a lottery system that all of these big computers are pointed at this one algorithm to try to solve it first. It's like a puzzle. Whoever solves it first gets to mine the Bitcoin blockchain. Mining basically means you're confirming that the transactions in the block are legit. It's a long explanation. I'm not going to go into too much detail. But basically, like every 10 to 15 minutes, somebody wins a certain amount of Bitcoin. But see, it's not one person. They usually have mining pools. So imagine a pool of hash power, of mining power. And there's let's say 500 computers all pointed at this pool. So that entire pool is comes together and points it at the, Bitcoin to mine it. And so that's just a very baby explanation. But the point is, every 10 to 15 minutes, a mining pool wins, and then that Bitcoin is distributed to all of the miners. And so all those people are selling their Bitcoin right now as we speak. They're selling their Bitcoin. They're not holding it. And we'll see periods of time where they do hold it. Like these Bitcoin miners will hold it. So this is some sell pressure here. My speculation, this is pure speculation. In theory, we don't know for sure. I think this fairly clearly shows right here that they're probably selling a lot of their Bitcoin to the spot ETFs. We see that a lot. So people don't understand this, but when it comes to millions of dollars of purchasing Bitcoin, chances are, or even billions, chances are there's some type of deal done off exchange. They don't just go to Coinbase and buy $5-10 million, $20 million worth of Bitcoin. They're usually doing a deal with somebody that either has a lot of Bitcoin or they'll buy it from the miners directly. This takes a lot of Bitcoin off the market in a way that doesn't affect price as much. But also just understand that if this would be a better situation if we had an uptrend of miners holding Bitcoin, because then all that spot ETF volume, all of that purchasing on the spot ETF has to be purchased somewhere else. So there would be two sources of demand instead of one source of demand. So this could be the reason why price is kind of suppressed, because you see these spikes right here. Look, these are huge spikes. And these little spikes led to this big drive here, which was part of that altcoin cycle. So that's one perspective of, people selling to, suppress the price or whatever the case is. Another perspective is, I think, kind of simple, which is, hey, bro, we're kind of just at all-time high. That's just kind of the perspective. What I did is I overlaid right here Bitcoin's price to the volatility, the VIX, volatility S&P 500 index. And I'm going to explain this. But to keep it very simple, these big spikes are big points of buying and selling. These are big uncertainty. I would say the best way to explain it is they're fear spikes. And volatility just means a lot of buys and sells. So these are big fear spikes. And I think somebody gave a really good explanation of this. When this goes down, it's like holding a balloon underwater, kind of. It's like it really wants to go up. It really does want volatility. That's usually how the market works out. It's kind of important perspective to understand because as you can see, we've been going down. So like right here, NVIDIA Insider Trading Alert, right? So the CEO sold 35.6 million worth of NVIDIA shares. He's now sold more than 115 million over the last 2 weeks. In general, people have to understand that this type of stuff usually happens at all-time high. We are at the all-time high for the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. People just naturally take profit. That's just the way it works. People try to sell high. That's kind of the gist of this situation. People are going to try to sell high. So I don't think that things like this are uncommon. We see Michael Berry, the guy that that called the 2008 housing market crash. He sold a lot of his stuff too. And we see some other sellers. It's not really that crazy. It's not like a massive trend, but it's just, bro, like people are at all-time high. This is $115 million. You think they're just going to let it play out where we're at all-time high? People do try to sell high, especially with, the Trump tariffs and things like that, which I think actually is a bullish perspective. But this is just natural stuff, right? And so again, if we kind of look at Bitcoin's price in comparison to the volatility S&P 500 index, again, it's like, could we see a spike in volatility, a little bit of fear, drives the market down a little bit, and then we break past all-time high? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. It's not out of the story. It's not something that's not impossible. It's not impossible. I want people to understand that this market does what it wants. You got to be prepared for both sides. You cannot just overly go on one perspective and one perspective only. You have to be prepared for both sides, right? Now, one more thing I've been seeing too is we see the volatility in the S&P 500 dropping very clearly, but we also see the same thing for Bitcoin spot, okay, versus future volume. Look at the price dropping, or not the price, but the volume. The volume is really, really low right now. So we do want to see more volume for price increase. We want to see more buyers and sellers. This shows, to a certain perspective, not perfect perspective, but it really does show more demand. It shows that people are demanding this asset for whatever it is. So it just really seems like the perception and the volume is down for all risk on assets. There's a little bit of uncertainty, and it could be because Trump and his tariffs. So he pushed off the tariffs to August 1st. Nobody knows exactly what's going on, but it is a thing. So this, to me, for the public perception right now might be slightly bearish, but this is actually, I put this in the category of the bullish perspective. The reason why I say bullish perspective is because we've already had the big panic event with Trump and the tariffs. So if you guys kind of looked at the price of what's going on with Bitcoin, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the first time he started talking about tariffs or whatever the case is, was like right around here. So we've already had the big panic. But at the same time, Liberation Day was right around here and it brought the price back up. So we've already had the big panic. Everybody, it's like you'll start to understand in markets, people like they lose interest very fast. I think this is kind of a dead topic. I think everybody's kind of prepared for it already. They're already thinking about it. And I think, again, the only reason the price fell last time wasn't because of any fundamental change in tariffs. It wasn't because of any actual like supply and demand thing that led to like inflation or something like that. I think it was more of a panic from public perception that dropped the price. So if the panic from public perception is already dead, it's already happened, right? He did Liberation Day, brought the market back up with the tariff policies. I don't think that this would be a big panic event. I actually think that once he finally puts in the tariffs on August 1st, this will finally give us some clarity and give people kind of the mental capacity to start trading again. I think this could be one of the biggest reasons why volume is dropping everywhere, is because it's just uncertain. It's very uncertain. So everybody's just kind of holding on, waiting to see what happens. And I think that's the most balanced perspective. We've already had the panic event for tariff policies. Even if the tariff policies are aggressive, I just don't think the market will react in a crazy negative way. We might see a small dip, maybe, but nothing like catastrophic to where it warrants selling your cryptocurrency. I don't think this is a good bearish case. I actually think it's a good bullish case. I think when we get clarity, the market will rebound. Now, from another perspective, which is really, really bullish in my personal opinion, what we're looking at here is Bitcoin's price when it comes to exchange balances for ETH and USDC, but we're specifically looking at Bitcoin exchange balances and ETH exchange balances. Now, please understand this concept before we get into the chart so you can really understand what this chart is. But I want you to think about somebody, for example, I don't know, selling Pokemon cards, right? Let's say you have a Pokemon card collection and it's in your closet, it's at your house, and you want to sell it for whatever reason. What you're going to do is you're going to go get the Pokemon collection, right? Get all the cards together, and you're going to bring it to a place to sell it, aka an exchange, right? So the actual store to sell your Pokemon cards are like basically a place where buying, selling happens. And it's the same thing with centralized exchanges. So what we're looking at here, again, this is Ethereum balance on exchanges total. That's the red line, excuse me. The green line is the Bitcoin. So red line is Ethereum balance on exchanges, and the green line is same thing, but for Bitcoin, balance on exchanges for Bitcoin. So think about it, this is an exchange. Imagine a store. If the store has a lot of Pokemon cards, if their supply of Pokemon cards is very high, then the chances of them trying to sell it is substantially higher. If they have a lot in the store, they're going to sell their Pokemon cards because they have too many cards, right? In some way, shape, or form. They could either sell it to other exchanges, they could sell it to people, whatever the case is, they have way too many cards in their exchange, right? Now, on the opposite side, if we see the supply, as we see here, dropping, that means that somebody's buying a lot of the supply and taking it off the exchanges. The same thing for crypto. Not like real investors, when it comes to like smart money, they don't hold their currency on centralized exchanges. I know a lot of people do because they don't know better, but like these big entities, massive entities, they're not holding their money on a centralized exchange. I'm telling you that right now. There's way too much risk. And this is not like, I want to be clear with like maybe newer investors that don't understand this concept. It's not like, this is not to argue. Like if you ask like 100 influencers that like in crypto, have been in crypto for more than a year, 100 of them will say this. Nobody holds their money on a centralized exchange anymore. It's like probably the newer investors and maybe some newer big investors, but like the vast majority of smart money, they take their money off of centralized exchanges. So when we see the balance of centralized exchanges for Ethereum and Bitcoin drop, this is the bullish case. People are taking ETH and Bitcoin off of centralized exchanges, meaning less selling is happening. So if we see this go increase, like if there's a lot of ETH and Bitcoin on centralized exchanges, going on centralized exchanges, then that means that there's a lot of potential to sell. Does that make sense? So people are hodling Ethereum and Bitcoin. They're pulling it off of centralized exchanges. And this is a lot, bro. This is a pretty like dramatic fall down. I also want to add that we know that when it comes to the actual spot ETF, that was over here. So the spot ETF was in January 2024, right here. So this is not ETF flows. This is right about here. So as you can see, Ethereum, in Ethereum's case, Ethereum was getting pulled off the exchanges, but in Bitcoin's case, it was increasing. And this could be because the spot ETFs are held on centralized exchanges, right? So whatever happened here in July 30th of 2024, whatever happened there, it started a trigger to pull off a lot of Bitcoin off the market. A lot of Bitcoin's been flying off the market, right? So yeah, just pay attention to that. It's important to understand this perspective because although price has been kind of suppressed, the fundamentals are not out of whack. For Bitcoin, this could lead to a supply shock. And for Ethereum, this is a lot of capital going into DeFi, which is the next chart I want to show you guys. A lot of capital going into DeFi. Look at this, is decentralized finance. You see an upward trend, higher highs and higher lows. This is an upward trend for TVL, or total value locked, right? So total value locked in DeFi is increasing. This actually looks really good and it looks sustainable. So from two perspectives, this does look like it's increasing, right? And it does look like it's going to break all-time high. And the second thing is that we're below all-time high from last cycle. So we know that there's a lot of potential energy and we have an upward trend. So when people pull Ethereum off of centralized exchanges, they're putting into contracts, they're staking it, they're going to put it into DeFi most of the time, not 100% of the time, but smart money usually does. So this is a really, really good sign. It's still healthy. It does not mean it's the end of the world for altcoins. We are undervalued. Altcoins are undervalued, and we see the potential increasing. It's very clear to you guys. Now, this is something that is not created by me. This is our ETF Flow to price model created by Ecometrics, or whatever the case is. And basically, they're claiming that because of the tightly linked ETF flows with rolling 30-day inflows approaching 50K BTC, they're saying that we have more upside according to their metric. I thought that was interesting. And not only that, but again, from the same entity, it just really shows that ETF flows for Ethereum is lagging behind on a substantial level, which is, again, adding to our case. So just to kind of like encapsulate what I'm saying here, to just kind of put the cherry on top of for your understanding so you can really comprehend what's going on, it just really looks like altcoins are extremely undervalued. It really looks like maybe we could have a small dip for Bitcoin because of the price suppression or whatever the case is. And I do believe, like, again, like I told you, I think the main thing is the miner. The miners are selling a lot. That could be suppressing the price or whatever the case is. And it's the decrease in volume. We don't have a lot of volume, right? So we just don't have a lot of buys. We don't have a lot of demand, a lot of hype or whatever the case is. Actually, I want to show you one more chart. Also, look at the sentiment. So we're looking at crypto, Bitcoin, and XRP search terms. And as you can see from this too as well, there's just not a lot of buzz around crypto right now. So the fact that Bitcoin's holding up at all-time high and there's nobody really talking about Bitcoin at all, to me is actually a really good sign. So this is what I mean by decrease in volume. If a lot of people are not talking about it and the volume's dropping, that means something's holding up the price. So if we see Ethereum going up, I saw a company, I think today, I forgot the exact company, they sold 200 million Bitcoin and bought 200 million Ethereum. We really see a shift towards Ethereum and altcoins. We're seeing it happen. So Bitcoin's price fighting at that level like that, to me, is insane. It's insane that it's still fighting. It's still at all-time high. It's gone through many things, including a World War III scare. It's gone through the tariff scare. It's held up in price. We do have, sell and suppression of price. But at the end of the day, like, it's just very clear that everything seems very undervalued. As soon as we get clarity from the tariff policies, as soon as the Federal Reserve drops interest rates to 3.9% like they claim towards the end of the year, we have like 16 different mechanisms for demand, like 16 different ways a lot of crypto is going to come off the market because of integration into the government. As soon as the 3 bills pass, the cryptocurrency bills that I've been talking about, the Clarity Act, right, the stablecoin thing, right, as soon as everything starts to play out, the fact that we've held up this good is insane. Bitcoin still has outcompeted every asset class on the face of the planet right now. So it's like a lot of fighting. Price is still held up, and altcoins are still extremely undervalued, and they're still kind of holding up, right? Now, some of the lower liquidity altcoins probably got wrecked, but I'm talking about the higher liquidity altcoins. They're still kind of holding up. So to me, it really does. I have to lean slightly towards bullish. Definitely bullish on a longer time horizon. Like, so when I think of 6 to 8 months, I'm like 90% bullish. Now, when I'm thinking about the next month to 2 months, I would say I'm 60% bullish. I'm leaning towards bullish. Like, we do break all-time high, right? I've made that claim. I do believe all-time high will be broken in the next like 3 to 6 months. No one knows exact time frames, right? But I do believe it will be broken. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a dip on Bitcoin's price and some altcoins, and that dip would be phenomenal. If anything, I actually want that dip to happen so I can accumulate some more crypto. So in general, it looks good. And again, I just want to kind of leave it at this topic here. If you're doing what we're doing, everybody has their own strategy. My strategy, invest in altcoins. I'm looking for high risk, high reward, high upside potential, right? We know that Ethereum is going to give us a solid 300% return from where it's at right now. So if we're looking at anything that's a little bit lower liquidity than that, right, that has a 5 to 10x potential, if you do get a 5 to 10x potential, you could be a trash trader and still make a lot of money if you use risk management. So in general, this is why I'm so calm about this stuff. It doesn't matter to me if Bitcoin dips. If Bitcoin dips, great, cheaper crypto. If it pumps, great, I can get into altcoins, high upside potential. Either way, I'm going to make money, and that's kind of my thought process now. You guys know I haven't held any crypto for a while. I'm looking for a good entry, but it doesn't mean I'm not researching, putting in the work, and aggregating a massive list of altcoins, which is we've been talking about for a very long time. And so either way, whatever presents itself, I'm going to make money. If the market goes up, Bitcoin breaks all-time high, hype will enter the market. I'll start accumulating some lower liquidity altcoins. If the market breaks down, I'll start accumulating Ethereum, and because it's a safe altcoin, right? Take advantage of the upside of that, and then start diversifying my Ethereum into lower liquidity altcoins. Either way, it's fine. If the market dips, I'll make more money probably. If the market pumps, I'm still gonna make money. And that's the beauty of risk management. Don't be over invested. Protect yourself. That's it for this video. If you like the quality of this content, hit like. If you don't, leave some constructive criticism. Subscribe for more video updates. And like I always say, if you don't get with it, you will get left behind. Catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace out.